right there is how you play incredibly below average golf.
Welcome into OverPar here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles. Matt Miguez here with a very special guest today, Mr. Dawson Eiserloh. You know him as DLoh, 2 Degrees, Son of Iceman. It goes on and on. We're talking about the Zurich Classic today down in officially Avondale, Louisiana. We're going to say New Orleans because that's what the PGA Tour is going to say. Dawson, I want to start because you have extensive experience with TPC Louisiana. So before I ask you any questions, go ahead and tell the folks what your extensive experience is.
Yeah, I had a great summer there working TPC, worked in the card area and just kind of, got a chance to play the course all summer. And really, it's a special place to me. Spent a lot of time out there and then getting to see the transformation come tournament time. It's pretty special, there's a ton of work that goes into it. So it's a little bit of a different course that the pros are going to see than the ones that I dealt with throughout the years when I was working there. But all in all, it's fun. And it's the only team event on the tour, so it's unique in a lot of different ways.
The par 72 course plays about 7,400 yards. You open up with a short par 4 right at 400 yards. There's a daunting par 5, two daunting par 5s right there in the middle of the course at hole 7 and hole 11. Just kind of talk to me about some of the holes that stand out to you and could give some guys some nightmares.
Yeah, well, you started with the first hole, and I will say that's the hole I looked out at all the time and just kind of dreamt about when my shift was over and I can go tee up on the first hole. It's really attackable, and it's an opportunity to make a birdie right off the bat and get yourself going in the right direction. For me, I separate this course into the par 3s, the par 4s, and the par 5s, right? When your par 3s are your really challenging holes. All 4 of them listed over 200 yards. They're all pretty tough to attack pins on. Number 9 specifically has a lot of water in play. You'll see guys lose them into the water. I remember last year when I was covering it, Sam Burns, LSU grad, just completely shanked one into the water over there. That's a tough pin, especially depending on where they put it. Come Sunday, when it's time to try and win this tournament. But the par 3s are really difficult. The par 5s are long, but they're attackable. If you put yourself in the fairway, and that's really going to be the theme. If you put yourself in the fairway at TPC Louisiana, you're going to have a chance to attack some pins and have some short yardages in. Look, we got guys like Rory McIlroy playing this year, making a return, hasn't played in the Zurich in a while. He's going to have some really, really good wedges into par 4s, and he might have some decent irons into par 5s to get on in 2 and have looks at eagle. So if you can drive the ball long, when TPC Louisiana was made, it was really long course. Nowadays, there's a lot of courses that are like that, and guys have just gotten so much longer off the tee. But if you can handle the par 3s, get away with 3s are good scores on those holes, you'll be able to attack the par 5s. And the par 4s, there's a mix. There's a couple of them, obviously, like the first one that we mentioned. There's a drivable par 4 there on the back 9 as well. But a couple really long ones. That stretch between holes 4, 5, and 6, that's a really difficult stretch for golfers. And if you're able to get through that, again, some of the formats, when they're doing the team format, it'll be a little bit tougher when you're playing alternate shot as opposed to when you're playing best ball. But there's a lot of low scores to be had by the pros out there.
Before we dive into the teams and who you like, I'm taking a look at the weather forecast, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, rain chances are low. 35% chance on Sunday for the final round. But one thing I'm noticing is that it's going to be windy. The lowest wind speed listed right now is 13 miles per hour on Thursday. So, how does that factor? Again, the course, where the water is and whatnot. How can wind play a factor into this weekend?
The first thing I think about is the par 3s that I mentioned. I mean, that's already a really daunting tee shot, especially on 9, that you're going to have to deal with. And with 10, 15 mile an hour winds factored into it, I think you're going to see a lot of bailouts this weekend. I think you're going to see some guys just go ahead and, I'm not attacking this pin. Just get me safe, get me somewhere right side of the green where I can have a putt and try and make a 3. Even the same thing with hole 3 as well. It's another par 3 that water's in play if you miss long or if you miss right. So I think those holes become more difficult. The advantage, look, a lot of the fairways are pretty wide and it's fairly open out there, so you can miss and still be successful at times. So in that regard, I think you'll be okay. But yeah, it should definitely at least hinder some of the aggressiveness that you might see. But as we mentioned already, team format, sometimes, especially on the best ball days, now they'll alternate between best ball and alternate shot. On the best ball days, maybe that's a strategy where you go, hey, one of our guys is going to be pretty aggressive, try and make birdie, but we also need to make sure we have a safe shot on the green. And like I mentioned on that par 3, let's say someone walks up to number 9 and your teammate's in the water. Well, now you better put something close,
Correct.
right? Or you better put something safe, I should say. So that does change the strategy for sure.
Rory McIlroy making his debut at this tournament. That's obviously dominated the headlines. The number 2 golfer in the world coming down to Southeast Louisiana. But look, Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, champions from 2 years ago. They are the odds favorite right now at plus 500. McIlroy and Shane Lowry at plus 800. But one thing that's interesting when you look at these odds, Davis Riley and Nick Hardy, last year's champions, at plus 8,000. Like, so I get that neither one of them are really playing great golf right now, but for the defending champs to be 80 to 1 seems wild.
Yeah, it's surprising. It is, because I guess, especially you figure their games are at least somewhat suited to TPC Louisiana because they had a lot of success there last year. But you mentioned it, they're not in peak form right now, so I guess you're just putting more of an emphasis on recency bias there. And look, there's some really interesting pairings that maybe aren't going to factor into having a chance to win the event. Steve Stricker coming back and playing. Yep. That's going to be exciting to see him out there. Rory and Shane Lowry, again, by the way, he's playing with Shane Lowry, who's also one of the the highest ranked golfers in the world. So that team's going to be formidable. I'll tell you, the other pairing I just love out of this whole thing is Will Zalatoris playing with Sahith Theegala. Theegala, a guy who got a lot of notoriety, recognition for being in the Full Swing documentary. Yep. One of the guys that everybody seems to like on tour. And then Zalatoris, again, at a point there, it looked like he was about to start to take over the golfing world. We know he's had some issues with consistency and some injuries and things like that have held him back. But if Zalatoris and Theegala get hot, and it's reflected, I think they're 3rd or 4th best odds. Those two are going to be fun to watch. Take on TPC over the week.
It's going to be a great weekend down in New Orleans for the Zurich Classic. Again, the only team-style tournament on the PGA Tour schedule. OverPar will be down there all weekend long with content, interviews, all kinds of great stuff coming your way. So be on the lookout for that. Dawson, any final thoughts?
No, it should be fun. Again, it's a course where, and you mentioned the wind, and maybe that plays a role, but when you're hitting it well, you can really get out and put some low numbers out there. Again, the other thing I did want to mention with Rory too, some of these longer holes, he's so long off the tee, he's going to have some real opportunities. Yeah. So I think he's got a good shot, and we'll see if he's able to play well enough to win it. But I think you're going to see you will see some of the bigger names near the top of the leaderboard, maybe a little bit different from last year.
It's going to be very entertaining to watch. Dawson, really appreciate you taking the time. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Follow us on social media as well at ESPN_SWLA. And we'll be back next week to talk more PGA Tour right here on OverPar.